1995, the O.J. Simpson trial was deemed the trial of the century. There was a whole cast of characters in that trial, including O.J., Nicole Simpson, Ron Goldman, the Kardashians, Judge Lance Ito, lawyers like Marcia Clark, Robert Shapiro, and Johnny Cochran, even an infamous white Ford Bronco. The Murdaugh trial in 2023 was deemed the trial of this century, and it had its own cast of characters, many of whom you just saw on the screen: the housekeeper, the clerk, the jury, the lawyers, and the judge. Each character with their own perspective, their own lens, their own viewpoints, their own opinions, and experiences in the trial of the century. This morning we will look not at the trial of the century, but at the trial of all eternity. And it, just like these recent trials, there's a gruesome and unthinkable murder. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, being severely flogged, murdered on a cross for crimes and sin that he did not commit. And just like these recent trials, there's an entire cast of characters at the cross, each with their own perspective, their own lens, their own viewpoints, their own opinions, their own experiences. And I don't think these cast of characters that we're going to look at today are there just because they were a part of the historical record. I think these characters are in the story because their stories show us and teach us how all people in all places at all times respond to Jesus. You should be able to find yourself in their story this morning. And so we'll look at 5 characters at the cross. Here we go. What we can learn from them 2,000 years later. Now, I need you to be awake, all right? Last night, I stayed awake, watched the Braves win on a walk-off. Go Braves. I watched Arizona advance to the Final Four, so I'm tired too. But I look out and I see people yawning, staring off into space. It makes me want to punch you, all right? If you're a guy. If a guy, it makes me want to punch you. And this church got really big really fast. When we were small, meeting in elementary school, I could just call you out, right? I could send you an email and say, I saw you yawning. I could visit your house the next week. One pastor was doing this practice. He would visit when somebody would fall asleep. Their church was really small. So he goes to this house and nobody's home. I mean, he knows somebody's home, but nobody's answering the door. So he writes Revelation 3:20 on his business card and sticks it in the door. Revelation 3:20 says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." So the next Sunday, that same business card was turned back in. They put it in the offering plate, had his verse on there, had another verse on there, Genesis 3:10. He couldn't remember that one, so he looked it up and said this: "I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked." So maybe I won't come to your house, right? Get weird real fast. Here we go. Trial of all eternity, the cast of characters at the cross. What I did was I took all 4 Gospels, all right, the account of all 4 Gospels, and I put them together to try to make it easier on you to follow. It was way more work on me. You're welcome, all right? And you better get all the work out of me that you're going to get, because in a week comes the Masters. I ain't doing nothing for Radius Church on Masters Week, all right? Here we go. Does anybody know how many trials Jesus went through? Anybody? 6. 6 trials. He goes to the high priest. He goes to another high priest. He goes to the Sanhedrin, which is kind of like the Supreme Court, 71 guys. Then he goes to Pilate. Who does Pilate send him to? Herod. And then Herod sends him back to Pilate, number 6. So we'll pick up the scene at the last trial with Pontius Pilate. And Pilate is our first character at the cross this morning. Pilate, the people pleaser. Pontius Pilate was a people-pleasing politician. Peter Piper, picked a peck of pickled peppers, right? Pontius Pilate was a people-pleasing politician. When it came right down to making a decision for Jesus or making a decision for the crowd, he went with the crowd. What about you? When it comes right down to it, make the decision for Christ or for the crowd? Let's look at Pilate. 6th and final trial of Jesus. Easier to follow on the screens because we're going to bounce around. We're going to start in Luke 23. Pilate, the people-pleasing politician, called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people and said to them, "You brought me this man Jesus as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and I have found no basis for your charges against him. Not guilty. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to me. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and release him. But the whole crowd shouted, away with this man. Release Barabbas to us. Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. More on Barabbas in a minute. All right, he's going to be another character we're going to look at. Wanting to release Jesus. Wanting to let Jesus go, Pilate appealed to the crowd again, but they kept shouting, crucify him, crucify him. For the third time he spoke to them, why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him. But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified. And their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. Pilate wants to release Jesus. Pilate wants to do right by Jesus, but he caves to the crowd. We got any of that in our room? I was hanging out 2 weeks ago. This is going to sound like I'm bragging at first, all right? But I'm about to throw myself under the bus, so just stay with me. 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out with this dude that's really famous. I won't say his name because I think sometimes somebody might send him these. But famous, like if you're in the sports world, you would know him. He's not my buddy. He's connected to a friend of mine. And we're hanging out. He is anti-Jesus. He's pretty clear. Anti-Christianity, which makes it a little weird when the pastor enters the scene, right? You know what I found myself doing? Trying to impress this guy. Isn't that sick? Like, I found myself, like, I want him to like me, which means maybe I don't talk a whole lot about Jesus because I know he doesn't like. Anybody else got that going on? Students, you got that going on? You want to do right by Jesus, but the hallway that you spend most of your life in doesn't really care about Jesus. And it's easy to cave to the crowd. I still remember the story, Radius Centerville. We had a student that was on a way bus trip. He was the only student on the bus not looking at pornography. Every other student gathered around a phone, looking at this naked lady on the phone, and he's sitting by himself. You want to talk about pressure? When you follow the crowd, you will get lost in the crowd. And so it's a really easy question this morning. Are you more concerned with pleasing the people or pleasing Jesus? Pilate asked Jesus, are you a king? And Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. We have to ask ourselves, is our kingdom of this world? I got a great question, practically, that'll help you decide if you aim to please people over Jesus. You ready? Do I make decisions based on what others will think about me? Do I make decisions in my life based on what other people will think about me? I do. Anybody else? I make decisions. I am a pastor at Radius Church. And so the way I spend money, I'm worried about what you people think. Right? Like if I buy a new truck, all of a sudden the people at Radius say, oh, that's how the pastor's spending the money that goes into the box in the back. I worry about stuff like that. Now, you got nothing to worry about. I drive a 2008 white Chevy Silverado, and when I switch it from air to heat under my dash, it goes, something like a dying cat, all right? So we're safe, but there's pastors that have jets, right? If I take a trip with my family, I'm really careful. I don't want to post it. I don't even have social media anymore, but I'm like telling my wife, like, I don't know if we should post this. I don't want people thinking we're spending crazy money. Why? Because I care what you think. I would imagine you got that going on in your life. You dress a certain way based on what people think. You dress your kids a certain way. You sign your kids up for certain things because other people are signing their kids up for it. My gosh, we got to do something in the summer or we look like bad parents. Got to live in a certain neighborhood or drive a certain car or eat at certain restaurants, vacation at a certain spot, all based off of what people will think when I post it on Instagram. Oh my gosh, can I just be real? Who cares? But if we're real honest, we do. We got a little Pilate in us, don't we? What if we switched our question from what will others think? What if the driving question of our life is, what will honor Jesus? If I ask that question and if it honors Jesus for me to buy a 2026 truck, who cares what you think? Now, this is not my way of telling you I'm about to buy a truck. I'm not, all right? Does it honor Jesus? Does this trip with my family and spending that money honor Jesus? Pilate listens to the people over Jesus. Why? Because he's a people pleaser. He would have gotten a lot of likes if he would have posted a selfie with Jesus on the cross. That's the popular decision. And so that's what he does, even though he knows Jesus is innocent. He's a puppet to the people, are we. Look at Galatians 1:10. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. I mean, I don't really want to drink, but they're not going to invite me if I don't. I don't really want to move in with my boyfriend or girlfriend, but I mean, everybody else is doing it. It's the businessman or woman who takes a few ethical shortcuts because, I mean, everybody else is. How am I going to compete? It's when you know you should say something and speak up and you don't. I'm not talking about on social media. I'm talking about you're sitting in the bleachers at a game and somebody's running their mouth about somebody and you say, hey, why don't you just go talk to them instead of talking about them? Or you know you need to tell somebody about Jesus, but you don't. You're like, I don't want to be so intense. This is intense. They hung the dude we follow, the guy we follow, on a cross. They nailed him to a tree. It wasn't popular to go, I'm with him. And guess what? In 2026, more times than not, it's not going to be popular to say, I'm with him. In life, you're going to have to make decisions. The world or Jesus. And I think Pilate is right on the verge of making a good decision for Jesus. 7 times in the gospel accounts, he says Jesus is innocent, but he's under immense pressure, and he rejects Jesus. And the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head and arrayed him in a purple robe. They came up to him saying, Hail, King of the Jews, and they struck him with their hands. Pilate went out again and said to them, See, I'm bringing him out to you that you may know that I find no guilt in him. So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, Behold the man. We got a bunch of people in Lexington County beholding the man. Now, you're like, man, you are on it today. Listen, I got to be on it. I don't know how to preach this lightly. I got some jokes here in a minute. They're funny. You're going to laugh. They're hilarious. But you got to deal with this first. People behold Jesus culturally. I mean, they like him. They're not atheists. They behold the man and they go to church sometimes and they say the blessing at their meals and they raise their kids and be good little moral kids. They probably got a cross necklace or one of them Jesus fish eating a Darwin fish bumper sticker. They're even mad they took prayer out of schools. They behold the man, but they've never really believed in the man. They've never surrendered their life to him. They like him. They'll even take up for him. But he's not their Lord. And they stop just short of giving Jesus their entire life. That's people-pleasing Pilate. He is literally close enough to smell the breath of God. And he beholds them, but he won't believe in them. What about you? Today's the day. 4th century historian Eusebius records that a few years after this, Pilate mishandles another situation and is fired from his position as governor. And 6 years after he sentenced Jesus to die, Eusebius writes that Pilate took his own life. Now, some debate on that. But 2 betrayers at this trial, Judas and Pilate, the Bible tells us Judas took his own life, and church historians would say Pilate took his, beholding him but never surrendering to him. What shall I do then? Pilate says. With the one you call the King of the Jews. Crucify him, they shouted. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas. He had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Second character at the cross, Barabbas. He's the guilty. You want to find yourself at the cross this morning? Meet Barabbas. You are Barabbas. I am Barabbas. It was customary to once a year at the time of Passover to release a prisoner. So Pilate's like, I got a great idea. I'll just let Jesus be the prisoner that we release. Surely they'll pick him. He's never done anything wrong. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. Put the murderer back in our town. We'll hide our kids. What shall I do then with Jesus who is called the Messiah? Pilate said. They all answered, crucify him. Why? What crime has he committed? Do you just see Pilate over and over and over? But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood. No, you're not. It's your responsibility. All the people answered, his blood is on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Man, I learned a lot about Barabbas in the last couple weeks. You know what Barabbas' name means? So Bar in Aramaic, that B-A-R, stands for son of, and Abbas is father. So Barabbas' name means son of a father. Now that's a pretty bland name. That's like naming your kid Junior, right? Or Sport. Son of a father. And that's what he represents. You and I are just son of a father. You know what Barabbas' first name is? Jesus. It's right there in your Bible, Matthew 27, 16, and 17. If it doesn't say Jesus Barabbas, it'll have a little footnote, and you go to the bottom, and it'll say some of the earliest manuscripts had his first name in there, Jesus Barabbas. You know what that means? There's a Jesus Barabbas who's just the son of some random father, and then there's Jesus the Christ who's son of the Most High God, and this one gets executed. What a sham. You are Barabbas. Some of you ladies are like, I don't want to be Barabbas. Well, be Barbara S. Okay? Here you are right here in the story. Are you guilty of your sin? Just like O.J. Simpson had a lawyer. His name was Johnny Cochran. If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. You got a lawyer. He lives right inside your head. And every time when somebody calls you a sinner, you immediately go, no. I've never killed anybody. Jesus says, you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. You ever been angry with somebody? Me either. I was with my son. He's 10, about to turn 11. We went last weekend to the games in Greenville, March Madness. And we're driving, and we're talking about, telling him what I was preaching about. And we're talking about Barabbas. He had some song that he knew that was about Barabbas. I think called I Am Barabbas. And I was telling him what I was preaching on, and I was like, man, we are Barabbas. That's why Barabbas is in the story. I said, but some people are going to immediately go, I'm not Barabbas. I'm not a murderer. And I shared this verse with him. I was like, you know what? Jesus said, if you've been angry with somebody in your heart, you committed murder. You know what he said? Whew. I've killed Clemson. That's what he said. More than once. He said, that's everybody. And I said, yes, and that's everybody. Are you guilty of your sin? There's a great scene in a courtroom. This man's wife had gone missing. Everybody assumes it's him that's done something to her, but they can't prove it. So his defense attorney gets up and does something brilliant. He says, not only did my client not murder his wife is going to walk through the back door of that courtroom in 10 seconds. The whole courtroom turns to the back doors. Well, 10 seconds goes by and nothing happens. And he's like, I just proved that you got reasonable doubt. Because every single one of y'all turned and looked, which means you got some doubt in your mind that she still exists. So the judge sends the jury out. They come back in 10 minutes later with a unanimous decision. Guilty. And the lawyer's like, guilty? You all just proved. You all just turned and looked at the door. And the jury said, yeah, but your client didn't look at the door. It took Centerville even longer to get it. You guys tracking with me here? He goes, your client didn't turn and look. He knew she wasn't walking through the door. That dude knew he was guilty. Do you? Barabbas knew he was guilty. Do you? Let me tell you what I hear all the time. Oh, I'm a good person. No, you're not. The Bible says no one is good, Romans 3, that we've all fallen short. Luke Bryan says, I believe this world ain't half as bad as it looks. I believe most people are good. He's wrong. His theology's whack. It's off. There's no such thing as a good person, just different levels of bad. I meet with people all the time, and they'll do stuff like they'll have a ladder to heaven, and they'll put Billy Graham like 2 rungs from the top. And they'll go, I'm no Billy Graham. And then they'll put Hitler at the very bottom of the ladder, and they'll go, but I'm not Hitler. The whole ladder is going to hell without faith in Jesus. I mean, do I need to prove to you that you're sinners? Hopefully you know. What if I just put your thought life up on the screen? Every thought that you had, how long would you make it? I'd get fired in 5 seconds. Think about the judgment, the things you think about people, the things you think about God at times. Francis Schaeffer has this illustration of what if you had a tape recorder around your neck and it only hit record when you said things like, someone should, or he ought to, or no one should ever, and you were judged only by your own standards when you got to heaven. That's what we do. We just change the standards, don't we? We just make it a moving target and we find somebody worse than us. That's what my kids do when they fail a test. My daughter, she's 13, she'll make a 50. First thing out of her mouth, Sally made a 48. I don't care about Sally. That tells me you and Sally together can't make 100, right? Find new friends. It's not helping you. It's not helping your case. I got an email from my kid's teacher, highest teacher last week. She's 13. The description, she got a write-up, and the description said, misuse of digital media. I was like, ugh. Then I went down to the description. Hyatt was watching March Madness during study hall. I was like, finally. People are like, you gonna punish her? I bought her a puppy. I ain't punishing her. Are you kidding me? But you know what Hyatt's go-to was? Everybody else was watching it. I just got caught. Is that what you do when you speed? Oh, officer, I thought you were going to get the car in front of me. They were going way faster. It doesn't change your guilt. We're all guilty. You'll never taste God's grace until you admit your guilt, ever. As long as you think you're a good person or better than most, you'll never really think you need a savior. At least give Barabbas credit. He knows he's bad. He knows he's guilty, but he goes free because Jesus takes his place. Can you picture Barabbas? The crowd's going, Barabbas, Barabbas, set Barabbas free. Barabbas is like, yeah, Barabbas, let Barabbas free. And look, I don't know what he did when they cut the chains off of him. Maybe he ran and robbed the first 7-Eleven he saw. I don't know what he did. I like to picture him sticking around and watching Jesus being flogged for what he should have got. They would have stripped Jesus of his clothes, and he would have been tied upright to a post with his hands over his head. A guard would use a whip with leather straps called a flagrum or a cat of nine tails. It would have pieces of metal and bone woven in to rip the flesh off the back with every lash. Each lash would remove strips of skin from his back like pieces of ribbon until his bones and his insides were exposed. Historians say when you would watch a flogging, you would literally see the bowels of men. Many prisoners of Rome that were sentenced to the cross would not even survive the flogging, but Jesus survived it, and according to doctors, was in critical condition and certainly in excruciating pain. It's where we get the word excruciating from the word crucifixion. They took him to a large hall inside Herod's palace and called together the entire regiment, which would have been about 600 soldiers. It's not one or two or a dozen, 600 soldiers having their way and having their fun with Jesus. They dressed him in a purple robe and they made a crown of thorns for his head using a plant that had razor-sharp thorns. Then they took a reed stick and beat him over the head with it, and they saluted him and taunted him, "Hail to the king!" And they spit on him. Can you picture 600 soldiers pushing each other just to get their fist or their spit on Jesus? When they finally got tired of being down on their knees and mocking him in fake worship, they took the robe off of him and put his own clothes back on him, probably exposing his nakedness, humiliating him in the process. Then they took him, the innocent Son of God, to the cross. But Barabbas goes free. Welcome to the gospel. You are Barabbas. I am Barabbas. 600 men. Jesus is like, I got 72,000 angels just waiting on me to go. But he didn't do it. Why? I set you free. Free from your chains of murder. That's Barabbas, free. Free from your chains of lust or anger or addiction or lying or gossiping or cheating or pornography or materialism or greed or the opinion of others. And if I keep going and you don't think you've sinned yet, it would be your pride and your self-righteousness. I am Barabbas. You are Barabbas. Here you are in the story at the cross. The first person to experience the substitutionary atonement of Jesus literally took his place. During the Civil War, there was a band of outlaws. They were in the Midwest. They would come into a town. They would rob it. They would pillage it. They would burn the town. And so they formed this militia in Kansas, and they had these orders to execute these guys without delay. So they catch this little band of outlaws in Iowa, and they dig a trench, and they line them up, and they're about to execute them. It's the firing squad. And this man comes out of the underbrush, and he's going, wait, and all the guns go to him. He goes, wait. He goes, I'm guilty. He goes, this man has a wife and has kids at home. I don't have a wife and have kids. Let me take his place. Major Whittle's telling the story. He goes, we ain't never seen nothing like this. So they let this man go free. They execute the man in his place. And as the story goes, this man comes back and gets the body. He puts the body on his mule, takes it back to Kansas City, and erects a 15-foot marble grave for the guy that took his place. This is what it says on the headstone. Sacred to the memory of Willie Lee. He took my place in the line and died for me. Just a real question. Would your life change if somebody died for you? Billy Sunday, evangelist from the early 1900s, was preaching on this, and he said, we ought to have a headstone somewhere that says, sacred to the memory of Jesus Christ. He took my place on the cross and gave his life that I might live. If the chains have been off, why would you go back to prison? Why would you go back to the lust and the pornography and the materialism and the greed and the gossiping? You've been freed from it, and who the Son sets free is free indeed. You are Barabbas, guilty of your sin, but Jesus takes your place. So we got people-pleasing Pilate. We got Barabbas the guilty. It's like the Murdaugh trial. We're just going through these characters with their own lens, their own viewpoints, their own opinions. Third character, Mary, the mother of Jesus. She's the hurting. You know, I think to say that Mary had a complicated pregnancy would be the understatement of the century, wouldn't it? Teenage mom, pregnant by the Holy Spirit, not married, all the talk, all the gossip. I would imagine when Jesus was born, she does what a lot of you moms do. As soon as they get all the junk off of them, all bruised faces, you're like, look, he's cute. They're not until a couple days later. But you think they're cute. And you undo the blanket, and you make sure they got 10 fingers, and you make sure they got 10 toes. The feet aren't even cute. They're fat. Looks like somebody blew up a hospital glove, right? And little toes come out. But you think they're cute because it's yours. And I would imagine Mary did all those things. The angel warned her. And now 33 years later, she's at the cross, and she's watching those same hands and feet that she counted fingers and toes in and got nails going through them. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mom there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, which is John, who's writing this, he said to her, woman, here is your son. And to John, the disciple, here is your mother. And from that time on, this disciple took her into his home. Don't miss this. Jesus got a lot going on right here. I mean, he's a little busy. He's about to drink the cup of God's wrath for our sin, and yet he pauses and takes care of the needs of his mother. Jesus got a lot going on right now. I mean, he's running a universe. There's some stuff in Iran he's probably concerned about. I don't know who in the room needs to hear this, but he sees you. He got a lot going on, but he sees you. He sees your struggles with addiction. He sees the health diagnosis you got, the death of a loved one, family drama, the depression or anxiety or a hard marriage or a tough relationship. He sees you. He sees you. He sees you. Number fourth character, the thief on the cross. We call this the never too far gone. This is why we're doing dominoes. If you've been praying for that domino for a while, you're tempted to go, I know Jesus can save everybody, but my domino's off the chain. My domino's been running for a long time. This thief is a reminder they are never too far gone and they can't out-sin the cross. Write a name on that thing and keep praying for them. Invite them next week to Easter. I promise they're going to hear the gospel. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. 2 rebels, 2 thieves were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. They would have nailed 5 to 7 inch nails into his hands and feet. The Persians invented crucifixions, but the Romans had perfected it. And it was horrific. There was a time where the Romans crucified 6,000 men and strung them up along a 120-mile stretch of road. Can you imagine getting in your car today and driving to Greenville, and between here and Greenville, seeing 6,000 men on a cross? Horrific. It's what Barabbas was going to get for murder. Most people that were crucified died from suffocation or exhaustion. I don't even know if this is important to the sermon, but it was very, very rare that they ever crucified a woman. And in the very, very rare cases that they would, even back then, and as barbaric and horrific as they were, they could not look at a woman's face. Go through that. So anytime a woman was crucified, they would turn her and have her face across. Sometimes as they hung men up on the cross, they would nail a seat that looked like a bicycle seat to the cross that would impale the private parts to the cross so that the man couldn't push up, which would extend the suffering. Men would be known to sometimes hang 9 days before dying. Excruciating. Can you picture it? Jesus in the middle. The trial is an absolute sham. And he's got 2 guilty thieves on either side of him, and they're mocking him. You want to talk about the peak of stupidity? Which, by the way, man, you want to stop sinning? You got to have the Holy Spirit. You start thinking about Jesus on the cross while you're sinning, that I'm actually entertaining myself with the things that he died for, it'll change your life. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you're the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. He saved others, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and then we will believe in him. Yeah, right. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, "I'm the Son of God." In the same way, the rebels, the thieves who were crucified with him, also heaped insults on him. 2 guys hanging beside him, mocking him, cursing him. But one of the thieves is going to stop long enough to consider what this cross means. He's going to stop long enough to consider. Because there's something about the cross if you just let it get on you. Pastor N.T. Wright tells a story about a priest who was hearing confessions from 3 troubled teenagers. And these teenagers had to go to confession, and they were just making up. They were making a mockery of it. They were making up sins that they hadn't even committed. And this priest lets the first 2 teenagers kind of go through it. But he gets to the 3rd prankster, and he said, "All right, you've confessed these sins. Now I want you to do something. I want you to walk to the far end of the church, and I want you to look at Jesus on the cross. You know the churches, right? They got Jesus, and he's on the crucifix. He's on the cross. So I want you to go, and I want you to say, I did all those things, and you died for me, but I don't care that much. And I want you to say it 3 times. So the kid goes, he looks at Jesus. I did all those things, and I know you died for me, but I don't care that much. I did all those things. I know you died for me, but I don't care that much. I did all those things. I know you died for me. And the kid breaks down. He couldn't get through the third one. N.T. Wright, who's telling the story, says, the reason I know this story is true because I was that teenage boy. And there's something about the cross. There's something about Jesus pursuing you and pursuing you and pursuing you and dying on the cross when you are making a mockery. But one of these thieves, he realizes, man, this could change my life. This could change my eternity. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God? We're under the same sentence, and we were punished justly. We're getting what we deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said, no, you hadn't done enough. Is that what he's going to say? Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Alistair Begg's got a great illustration. You probably heard it. You need to go listen to it on YouTube if you hadn't, because I won't do it justice. But he's preaching, and he's got a bunch of just stiff-looking dudes up behind him. And he goes, it ain't working. Whatever I'm saying ain't working. I heard an interview later where he talks about, so he just started talking about the thief on the cross, and he said, hey, when you get to heaven, what you going to say when they say, why should we let you in? He goes, if you start your answer with, you're wrong. Because I went to church, because I gave money, because I blessed my food before I ate it sometimes. He goes, you better start with because he. He goes, that's why the thief on the cross is so exciting. He goes, I can't wait to get to that guy in heaven and ask him, what was it like for you, man? What was it like for you when you got to heaven? The angel's like, hey, why should we let you in? And the thief goes, I don't know. What you mean you don't know? Goes against the angel supervisor. Brings the angel supervisor over. Why should we let you in? I don't know. So they start asking some questions. Are you clear on the doctrine of the Trinity? I don't know what the Trinity is. Can you name the 66 books of the Bible? I didn't know there were 66. Why should we let you in? On what basis are you allowed in here? And the thief says this, the man on the middle cross said I could come. That's your answer. And if you don't preach that to yourself every single day, all of a sudden you'll start to think you did something. You earned something. I got to go to Long's Pond, but I'm going to do this anyway. If I ask you right now, if you're going to heaven, 1 to 10, what would you say? Some of you are like 5, it's a toss-up. Some of you are like 2, I do some really shady stuff. Some of you are like, I'm an 8. Do you want to be a 10? It ain't complicated. It's really not. We complicate it, but it's not. If I sent you to the Final Four, I bought your tickets to the Final Four, and I sent you, and you get to the arena, and they say, why should we let you in? What you going to say? I got tickets. Did you buy the tickets? Nope. Did you earn them? Nope. How'd you get them? They were a gift. There's the gospel. It's a gift. One last character. And this is really good news. I hope you're seeing yourself at the cross. Maybe you got some people-pleasing Pilate in you. You are Barabbas. Make no mistake about that. Maybe you're hurting like Mary. Maybe you're the thief and you've been mocking it with your life, but for the first time, or maybe you've just been reminded this morning it's only the work of Jesus. This last character is for everyone in the room, Simon, the invited. We don't talk about him much. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. Look at Luke's account. As they led Jesus away, a man named Simon, who was from Cyrene, happened to be coming in. I think some of you just happened to be here today. Isn't that funny? The soldiers seized him and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Just happened to be passing by, but the cross of Jesus is going to intersect his life, and he's never going to be the same. We're hoping that happens for you. Look at Mark's account. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. Now we get his son's names. Here's my question. Why are we getting all these details about Simon? Why do they name him? Why do they tell us where he's from? Why do they mention his son's name? The thieves don't get mentioned. Don't know their name. We just call them thief. The guards who were beating Jesus, the 600 of them, we don't have any of their names. Why do we have this guy's name? Part of the reason we have it is because the early readers of this gospel would go, Simon was there? I know Simon. He lives over there by the Jerusalem Planet Fitness, right? I know him. He played ball with my boy Rufus. I know Simon. That's part of the reason his name's in there. But why mention his sons? Why mention Alexander and Rufus? This is awesome. Romans 16, written 20-something years later, Paul is thanking a bunch of people in the last chapter of Romans, and look what he says. J.D. Greer, I heard J.D. Greer say this. Look what he says, verse 13. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, who has been a mother to me too. Now, Bible scholars are almost positive it's the same Rufus mentioned in the Gospels. You know why I think it's the same Rufus? How many moms name their kid Rufus? Right? Probably the same Rufus. Which means we can assume, I think, Simon gave his life to Jesus, his wife gave her life to Jesus, and both the boys became disciples of Jesus. We don't serve a weak and staggering Savior as he carries the cross. He's strong and he's sovereign. And out of 26 names in Romans, this is the only one that says chosen by the Lord. Now, all of them are chosen by the Lord. Why even put that in there? It's because while Jesus, in his worst moment, walking to the cross, he's still inviting people. Last story, Stephen Curtis Chapman. If you're my age, in your 40s, he was probably the worship name of when we were growing up, early 2000s. 2008, tragedy struck his house. His 17-year-old son was pulling in to their driveway and did not see his 5-year-old sister, who was running out to greet him. So he hits her with the car, and chaos ensues. Stephen Curtis Chapman says he was in the backyard. He heard his wife wailing. He ran and he picked up his daughter, and he knew she wasn't going to make it. And I'll spare you the details because they are horrific. They call the ambulance, and Stephen Curtis Chapman and his wife get in the police car to follow. And as they're pulling out, he noticed his 17-year-old son in a heap in the front yard. And all the chaos, people forgot about him. He's just in a heap in the yard. Guilt, shame, grief. So they're in the police car, and Stephen Curtis Chapman yells to the policeman. He says, stop the car. The guy's like, man, we can't stop. He goes, stop the car just for a minute. Stephen Curtis Chapman gets up on the door jamb of the police car, and he points at his son, and he says, Will Franklin, your father loves you. He got in the car, went to the hospital where his little girl died. I'll tell you what's shocking to me about that story. And a father, in the worst moment of his life, is reminding his son, I love you. Your heavenly Father, worst moment in the history of the world, his son's going to the cross. He's inviting you and me. Why would you wait till Easter to go ahead and just surrender? Do it now. We're praying that you would. Maybe you just write on a Connect card and put it in the bag. We don't do the stuff where we're like, oh, hands raised, and oh, I think there's some more hands over here. I'm not going to turn my watch off till so. We don't do that. The Holy Spirit applies the perfect amount of pressure. But you got to respond. When a man dies and goes into a grave and 3 days later comes out, you can say yes, you can say no, but you got to say something. It demands a response. Jesus, I love that story. I love it and I don't love it in so many ways. Many of us will gather at our campuses on Friday and we'll remember the cross. We call it Good Friday. And yet if you were there on that scene that day, there's nothing good about it. And so this week, the week before Easter, we want to sit in that a little bit. Maybe there's some of us that have people-pleasing we need to confess. We've been choosing the way of the crowd. Maybe some of us are hurting. We're just reminded that you see us today. Maybe for the first time, we realize we are guilty before a holy God, and we would surrender to you today. And there's probably many of us that surrendered a long time ago, and today we're just reminded it's only your blood that saves us. It's a gift. So whatever it is, Jesus, we want to respond. So would you meet us here and do the work in us that only you can do? We love you. It's in your great name that we pray.